Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Today is Monday, October 23rd, 2023. So, hey, I'm excited for this. Obviously, big weekend of college football. Ohio State kind of went out and put the clamps on Penn State. So, I want to get into that game and some position grades. And then I did some thinking back. So, looking at this Ohio State team, there's a lot of guys that are playing really well that are draft eligible. So I want to take a look back at Ohio State's 2021 recruiting class and some of the names in there. I don't know what the greatest recruiting class ever is, but I think that this class has the potential to be in that conversation because I think by my count, I had potentially five first round picks just out of that class that could be. It just depends on how they finish out the season. So we'll get into that after we talk about this Penn State game, of course, because, I mean, how could you not talk about it? It was a crazy game. I really think the score doesn't really indicate how dominant the game was for Ohio State, in my opinion. The score ended up being 20-12, and I mean, obviously Ohio State missed a field goal late in the game, and it would have been 23-12. And then that last drive, it was like, I don't know, man. Penn State, whatever, they tried to fight until the very end. I got to give them credit for that. But they really had no offense before that. So I don't know. I hate that they gave that drive up, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead and get into it here. Like I said, I want to do some position grades. I'm going to start with the defense because I think it'll be a little bit easier. I feel like everybody on the defense played great, and even Jim Knowles does like his what is it, silver bullet of the day or silver bullet of the week or whatever for every single game, and then for practices. For this game, Jim Knowles said his silver bullet was the entire defense, which I don't see how he could not do it that way. I mean, they played phenomenal. The defense really just kind of shut everything down that Penn State wanted to do. So let's go ahead and get into the grades for those units. I'm going to start with the defensive line. I usually separate the interior and the edge guys, so we'll start with the interior guys. The interior guys are getting an A+ from me. I think that the fact that Penn State was not really able to run the ball successfully was almost, I don't want to say all, but it was a, it was hugely impacted by the interior defensive line. You look at guys like Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams, and then Ty Hamilton actually had, I think, probably his best game as a Buckeye. So, I mean, they were dominating the interior of that offensive line from Penn State, and we're just kind of shutting the run game down, making it muddy, and closing up gaps. I mean, again, I give those guys an A, and then I'm just going to move on to the defensive ends. I'm going to give the defensive ends an A+ in this game. I think that on the offensive line, the spot that Penn State is the strongest at is their tackles. They have Olu Fashanu, I think is the guy's name. Supposed to be like a top 5 pick, first round draft tackle, first tackle off the board. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, JTT, he held his own out there against him. I mean, we saw JTT go against Joe Alt a couple weeks ago, and it didn't really pop until he switched to the other side and went against Notre Dame's other tackle. But I mean, against Olu, JTT was kind of giving him some problems. He was pushing him back and putting some moves on him. So I don't know. I'm going to give it A+ to the defensive ends. I think they ended up with 2 sacks just from the defensive end position. Let me see if I can find that here. Yeah, I know JTT had 1. So Sonny Styles had 1. Caden Curry. Oh, so 3. Okay, so 3 sacks from the defensive ends. So you had Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson getting on the board for the first time. Super excited for that kid's future, man. I think that he could end up being that like dominant defensive end that Ohio State is used to having, and hopefully he'll continue developing because he's got the freakiness, the bend, and all that. So three sacks from the defensive ends. I'm giving them full credit, man, because like I said, Penn State's offensive tackles are probably their best unit on their offensive line, especially Olu Fashanu, and they were out there giving them fits, man. So a lot of people were giving the defensive ends a lot of flack throughout this entire year, and I think that a lot of that was unwarranted, in my opinion. I think that they are kind of doing what they're asked to do, which is not really get out there and do whatever spin move or whatever move that you want to do and try to get to the quarterback. So high grade for them. And then moving on to the linebackers, I feel like the linebackers played better in this game. I really do. I think that Steel Chambers was challenged, and I think that he played decent. He didn't, I didn't really see him out there getting burnt. I didn't really see him filling the wrong gaps too much. Obviously, when I get a chance to watch like the All 22, that'll be the end all be all. However, I mean, overall, I feel like the linebackers played really good. I'm gonna probably grade them out at an A also, just because I didn't really see any issues where that was their mistake. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Like I didn't really see any big plays kind of get loose or Penn State able to gash Ohio State because the linebackers were not doing what they were supposed to do. So I'm gonna grade them out at an A, and then I'm gonna move on from them. Again, it was not really too much of an exciting game for the linebackers this game. But Cody Simon, I do got to talk about him, man. I predicted that he would have an impact play in this game, and he did. I think that Cody Simon can be, I would say, the second best linebacker on this team if he continues to get reps and continues to get better. So I made a joke that Steel Chambers has kind of played so bad. Oh, here, this is supposed to be up here. My bad. Anyway, sorry if the audio was a little messed up. But anyway, I made a joke that Steel Chambers has played so bad this year that he has made me a fan of Cody Simon. But I mean, when Cody Simon's out there, he's not really making mistakes unless it's in the pass game. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I think that rotating Cody and Steel at that other position is probably the right thing to do right now until CJ Hicks is ready to play. I don't know if that'll be this year. Probably not. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. He says, taxes. I don't think you don't think Michigan has a great O-line. All right, cool. Yeah, sorry about the audio issue, bro. I forgot to move my mic where I always have it. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Tax. I don't think that Michigan has like a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line this year, and I mean, I think that Ohio State will be able to take advantage of that. But it's also they still have more games to continue to gel. So I mean, we'll see how that plays out. I just think that the overall defensive structure is going to be a lot better to deal with Michigan's run game, and ultimately their pass game is going to struggle against Ohio State, no matter how you look at it, because I don't think that Michigan has astronomically better wide receivers than Penn State, and Ohio State's defensive backs have Penn State kind of on lockdown. So, I mean, and that's a good transition. Actually, we'll talk about the defensive backs. I'm going to go with the corners first, since that's kind of what I was just talking about. Obviously, playing this game without Denzel Burke, who is working his way to being like a lock first-round pick, I was worried about it. I was like, Penn State always has a wide receiver that kind of get off on Ohio State every year, but they were just not having that this year, dude. I mean, you look at Davis Nick-Bonosin, Jordan Hancock played a phenomenal game. I actually posted on Twitter, I had Jordan Hancock as my defensive player of the game. So, and the reason why I did that is because Jordan Hancock switched from outside corner to also the nickel in this game. So whenever Penn State came out in a package where Jim Knowles wanted the nickel out there, Jermaine Matthews, who's another guy we'll talk about in a minute, came out, and then Jordan Hancock slid into the nickel. And then whenever they didn't need that extra corner out there, Jordan Hancock was an outside corner, and he was really fucking good at it, man. Like, I didn't have any issues with anything that he did. So, I mean, I don't know. And he was blowing plays up in the backfield. There was one play that I remember specifically where he was sent on a blitz, and I think he was like sent on a blitz to like the C gap or the B gap, and he hit the running back in the backfield, stonewalled him. The running back got off the tackle, but then that allowed everybody else to rally to the tackle and ended up being a tackle for loss. I mean, that play was made by Jordan Hancock, even though the stat sheet is not going to show a tackle for him. It'll probably show a missed tackle, but that was a great play that he made. So I don't know. And then I do want to talk about Jermaine Matthews. Oh man, that kid, the sky is the limit for him. If I was going to talk about Jermaine Matthews right now, what I think that his career will be, I think that he can easily end up being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think that he has that type of potential, and he got put into a game here where Ohio State's going against the top team ranked 7 in the nation, 5-star, all everything quarterback, and he's a true freshman. They're like, hey man, you're gonna sink or swim, get out there. And I tell you what, man, he swam. He was locking shit up all game. Obviously, he gave up the 1 touchdown, which I think that was not even a catch. I think he was bobbling it, and then his shoulder touched out of bounds. And that was the drive where we just let them go down the field anyway. So I'm not really too worried about it. And even that one was not easy. I mean, he was an inch away from that being a pass deflection. So listen, Jermaine Matthews is going to be a superstar, and I think that he's going to continue. I think that he will continue the swag that this defense has right now. You look into the future with Denzel Burke and potentially Jordan Hancock leaving. Next year's corners are probably going to end up being Davis Nigvenosen and Jermaine Matthews. And I mean, I think it's just going to continue just being, what do they call it, seatbelt society. They're going to continue locking shit up. So I'm going to grade out the corners as A plus. Excuse me. I think that they really caused Penn State a lot of problems, and it started from the very beginning. The very first pass I think that Drew Aller threw, Jordan Hancock came up and pass deflected, got it out of there, and you could tell from that point that it was going to be a rough day for Penn State because, I mean, that was just a little comeback route, and he jumped the shit out of that. So if they wanted to continue doing passes like that, somebody was going to end up getting a pick six, and so they kind of changed up their game plan a little bit, and I don't know, man, Ohio State was ready for it. I love this defense, man. So A plus for the corners. And then I'm going to move on to the safety position. This is one of my favorite positions to talk about on this team, honestly. I think my favorite player on this team, my top 2 favorite players on this team are both from the secondary. And the first one is Davis Nigvenosen. I love what he brings to the team. And I mean, I think that what he brings to the team is something that you cannot even, you can't even put it into words, kind of, because it's an attitude, it's a toughness, it's his tenacity, it's his coverage, it's his, everything. I mean, Davis Nigvenosen's a baller. I think my second favorite player on this team right now is Josh Proctor, a guy who I talked about a lot before this season. I mean, I was never too confident that he was going to come out and have the season that he is, but with his physical ability, Josh Proctor is one of the most physically gifted guys on this team. I mean, he is a superior athlete to most people, and it shows when he's out there. And now they have him in the right positions. They have him playing smart and not overshooting tackles and all that good stuff. And honestly, he's kind of locking shit up in the secondary, man. I don't know. I love what he's doing. Lathan Ransom, I feel like, is in a better position this year than he was last year. And maybe some of that just has to do with the guys around him. I think maybe he was trying to play some hero ball last year and make up for mistakes that other people were making. And, if you go back to the Michigan game last year, there was a play where Lathan gave up a touchdown. He's 20 yards off the ball, but his eyes are in the backfield. And their tight end got past him. I mean, again, if you're 20 yards off the ball, your eyes don't need to be in the backfield while somebody's running past you. So I think he's been put in a better position this year, and he understands what his job is better. And I think that is benefiting him, and that's benefiting this defense overall. I'm going to grade the safeties out of the A+ also. Again, I mean, overall, the defense gets an A+ grade for their performance. In my eyes, they only gave up 6 points. Whatever. If you want to take that last one where Penn State just decided, okay, now we're going to start trying to score or whatever, that's fine, because they were playing like a prevent defense. And I almost put those points on the offense because Ohio State was up by, 2 scores, and their offense comes on the field. And if you get a first down, the game is pretty much over at that point. You get 1 first down, and then you can kneel the ball out. And they run the ball straight up the middle 3 times and punt it away. And they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. We'll just put the defense back out there, put them in prevent, and let Penn State waste the game clock. Whatever, it worked. They won the game, but it made the game look closer than what it was, especially because in that drive where they just ran the ball up the middle, the defense had just created a stop and got them good field position, and then they kicked the field goal and missed it. So whatever. I kind of put that on the offense. It is what it is. But, I mean, I look at this game as it was completely dominated by Ohio State's defense. I know that a lot of Penn State fans are not happy with their offensive coaches. Mike Yurcich, they're not happy with him as the offensive coordinator. But I don't really think that they were going to change anything up that was really going to um, like be effective. I mean, they may have been able to get a little bit more success, but like I don't really think that those receivers were going to beat Ohio State's defensive backs, no matter what play call you made. They were on lock, man. And I think that is the problem that Penn State's going to have this year is they finally now have their quarterback, who I still think that Drew Aller is a really good player. I think Ohio State kind of put him in a blender, but I think that the receivers were just not getting open. I mean, a couple times they were, and he made a bad throw, but for the most part, he had nowhere to throw the ball, and his offensive line was not holding up. So I'm not putting that on Drew Aller. I just think Ohio State's defense is that good this year. All of their best players on defense, I won't say all, most of their best players on defense are juniors who are going to be NFL players next year and who are going to be NFL starters next year. It's just they just ran into like kind of the buzzsaw, man. And I love what Jim Knowles is doing this year because he showed the ability in this game to dial up pressure. Where this year we've kind of been playing uh, sit back, keep everything in front of you, bend but don't break, whatever you want to call it. But Jim Knowles has shown this that he is able to dial up pressure, and he's shown that he knows when to dial up pressure. Where last year I think he was trying to make up for the issues in the secondary. Jim Knowles knew that his secondary was not great, so he's like, let's make it easier on them and just get pressure right away. That way the receivers don't have time to go out there and make plays. And it backfired a lot of the times because the secondary was just that bad and they were that injured. But this year he trusts everybody on this team, and I mean I think we're seeing what Jim Knowles can do as a defensive coordinator. Um, Before I move on here to the offense, if you obviously guys like the video, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. If you have any questions in chat, let me know. I see my boy Tax has some things to say here, so let me get into a couple things from the chat. Yep, I think that's probably the most important thing about the defense this year. Tax is that he's not vacating the safety from the middle of the field for the most part. He did a couple times in this game, and it actually worked out where we did do a couple like zero pressures and stuff like that. But those are things that you have to have as part of your defense. Every team does that. You just can't do it every single time. And the thing that I liked the most that I seen this weekend was when Jim Knowles brought everybody up to the line. It was like I think a 3rd down and 4 or something, whatever it was, 3rd and 6, something like that. He brought everyone up to the line like they were going to send zero pressure, and then as the ball was snapped, everybody dropped out into a zone, and they only rushed 3 on the play, and the guys who rushed didn't get a ton of pressure, but they were at least making Drew Aller move off of his spot. And then it ended up being an incompletion, and I mean those types of things are what this team has to do. Like if you're gonna dial up pressure, you need to do those types of disguises, so that way the other team doesn't know when you're gonna send pressure. And that's just, I mean, Jim Knowles, I felt like he did that early in the year last year, but I also think that he stopped doing that as the year went on. And I don't know if that was confidence in the team, confidence in the guys to get back to their spot. I don't know, but those types of plays are super important. I think that Jim Knowles has this defense firing on all cylinders. And honestly, I don't think that this is a fluke. Excuse me. We're 7 games into the year now. I don't think that the way that this defense is playing is like, oh, they haven't played anybody, blah, blah, blah. They're obviously probably going to give up more points, the better teams that they play, maybe a little bit more. But I don't think that there's anything fluky going on. I think that they're just that good. I think the secondary is that good. The defensive line is that good. And, I mean, the linebackers are continuing to get better as the year goes on. And I even think that the linebackers not playing great this year, I think that has more to do with the scheme than it does with those individual players. Like, I don't think that Tommy or Steele are like world beaters who are going to be automatic starters in the NFL or nothing like that. But I think that in the scheme last year where they were attacking, their talent deficiencies were kind of covered up. This year, they're not doing that. They're not covering up their talent deficiencies. They're like, hey, go out there and play like a more traditional linebacker would play. And it's putting them in some spots that are not favorable for them. But at the same time, I mean, you got to make plays. You play for Ohio State. So you get NIL deals like everybody else. So go out there and do what you got to do. All right, and then moving on to the offense. All right, I'm gonna save the quarterback for last because I got some interesting things to say about Kyle McCord, and then obviously talk about DB with his injury and whatnot. Anyway, let's move on to the running backs. So I feel like the running backs actually played a pretty good game in this game. The stats don't really show it. You look at Mayan Williams averaged 2.6 yards per carry, Chip Trainum 2.4, and I think that those averages were really brought down late in the game when they started just handing the ball off, and Penn State kind of knew what they were going to do. I think that brought the averages down a lot, even with some negative plays in there. Because honestly, overall, I would say that Mayan Williams was really successful on the ground, and even Chip Trainum, when he was out there, he had multiple plays where he would get a handoff back-to-back times and would go for like 5+ yards. So I don't know. The stats don't really show me that the run game was successful against Penn State. But if you watch that game, you know that the run game was fairly successful against Penn State. I'm going to grade the running backs out at like a B. I think they played okay. Neither one of them did anything like phenomenal. But and then Chip had the one. Ohio State gave up 2 sacks in this game. One of them was Chip Trainum got beat on like a swim move by a corner, and that can't happen. Chip's a big dude. You can't get beat by a corner, man. Go out there and punch that dude in the chest. But anyway, I think I'll grade them out as a B. And then I'm going to move on to the offensive line. So this is one of the hardest units for me to grade in this game. I think that if I could separate the offensive line and say I'm going to give them a pass grade and a rush grade, I would give them an A+ for their pass grade, and I would give them maybe like a C for their run blocking in this game. Now, I think that some of that was Penn State kind of figuring out what Ohio State was doing, and then Ohio State not really being multiple in the run game, because we started off the game doing more like counters and gap scheme runs, and then it felt like as the game went on, we just stuck with stretch runs, and that was it, and there was there was not really too much multiplicity there. And we're even like pretending to read someone, which Kyle's not reading a defender. He's just handing the ball off. I don't even know why we ever do that, because if we ever do need a first down, he could probably just pull it, and if it's like 2nd and 5 or something and you need a first down, Kyle could probably just pull it and he would get the first down easy because no one even pays attention to him. The whole defense runs with the running back, and then Kyle just runs off to the side and pretends like he's running with no one even looking at him. So I don't know, but I do think that the offensive line, what I was saying, I think that in the pass pro was phenomenal in this game. I don't care. Don't let all these other people who are trying to make excuses for Kyle McCord tell you anything else. Excuse me. The Ohio State's offensive line was phenomenal in pass protection in this game. The one sack that the offensive line gave up, Kyle McCord held on to the ball too long, and I will stand on that. I believe that 100%. That was the one on the goal line. That was a really scary play in that disaster drive that Ohio State had, where they had 2 penalties, which one of them was not even. It was on Josh Simmons. There was no hold there. I don't even know what the hell the refs even called that for. But anyway, the offensive line was phenomenal in pass protection, and I think that is just a kudos to Justin Fry. He got a lot of heat and a lot of flack over the last couple weeks about the way the offensive line played, and combined with like his recruiting is not phenomenal right now. But this was the biggest game against the best defensive line that this team has played, and I mean, Kyle was not under duress like at any time in the game really. There was the one play where they got like the strip sack for a touchdown that ended up being called back, and Josh Simmons kind of did get beat on that. But at the same time, if you watch that play, if you're not a Penn State fan and you watch that play, you know that the reason why that ball wasn't out of Kyle McCord's hands is because Kalen King got beat and he held Marvin Harrison Jr. Because if not, Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be streaking across the middle, and it probably would have been a touchdown. And Kyle would have had time to throw that ball, but he didn't, because Kalen King grabbed a hold of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s jersey. And then Kyle, he does need to be better in a situation like that, though. Like, I'll get into that when I talk about the quarterback stuff. But anyway, I'm going to say overall for the offensive line, I'm going to grade them out as a B. I'll take the A+ and the C and just average it out to a B. Maybe a B+. I'm going to say a B+, because this was a really good defensive line that they went against. And mean, there was times where they were dominant in the run game too, but there were times where they were really bad in the run game. So, moving on to the tight end position. Listen, man, Cade Stover is one of them ones that we just have to talk about, man. Like a lot of people disliked Cade Stover because of how he played last year in the Michigan game. Any other game he played really well, but in the Michigan game last year was probably his worst game. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I want to see how this whole stuff plays out with the accusations of Michigan cheating, because a lot of people were like posting clips and stuff like that, and like, oh, was this cheating where Michigan made good plays? But the bottom line is that if they were cheating and had an unfair advantage, like this is a game where you're talking about two of the best teams in the country. If one team has a small advantage, that's a huge advantage when the discrepancy between two teams is not that much. So I don't know. I don't want to get too much into that until more details come out, because I've been kind of popping off on Twitter about it, and I don't care. It's all jokes and fun. But if they were cheating, I think that that's going to be something that will uh, come with a larger penalty. It won't be something that it's just going to get brushed under the rug. But anyway, talking about the tight ends, Cade Stover. And G. Scott played a little bit in this game, but I mean, I don't really know how to grade him because he didn't catch the ball. I think he got one target, and it was a bad throw by Kyle. But Cade Stover has been playing phenomenal. Cade Stover had 4 catches for 70 yards in this game, 17.5 yards a catch. The one catch that he made, he went up and caught a ball over a defender, which if you look at last year and then transition straight to this year, Cade Stover looks like a different player in that sense, in my opinion. Last year, he was a tight end who could probably get open, could probably break some tackles. He could still do all that stuff, but he was not going to catch the ball over anybody last year. He was not that type of tight end, and I think that he added that ability to his game. Like if you take Cade Stover this year and give him the play in Michigan where little Mike Samerstill knocked the ball out of his hands, I think Cade Stover probably catches that this year. And even though he was in great coverage, I think Cade just goes up with strong hands and brings that ball down. So I don't know. I'm going to give the tight ends a B grade also, just because there was a couple blocking assignments they missed. But overall, Cade Stover in the receiving game, he was the second leading receiver on the team in this game. And I mean, it really wasn't close. You have Marv went crazy. We'll talk about that. And then Cade and then Carnell Tate had a couple catches. So give them a B. And then let's move on to the wide receivers. Like I said, talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. So obviously the wide receiver room in this game, we're going to talk about Marv more than anything, because I personally think that this was his best game as a Buckeye. You got corners on Penn State's team who are supposed to be first-round picks, top 2-day picks, and Marv kind of went up in this game and was like, okay, we'll see, and put up 11 catches for 162 yards. That's Marv's highest amount of catches in one game so far in his career at Ohio State. Only one touchdown, but listen, that one touchdown was kind of the game-sealing one. And listen, I just think that when you talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., he is one of the only players right now in college football that you could use the term generational, and you're not lying. A lot of people use generational for other players. Jim Harbaugh even fucking said J.J. McCarthy was generational. He's not even close. But anyway, Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably one of, if not the only player in college football right now that you can call generational. And I think that when he goes against really good corners, or corners who have like a lot of hype, a lot of draft stock, I think that Marv kind of takes that as a challenge. And he's like, okay, I'm going to show you what I can do now. And I saw a cut up of the All-22 from just Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Kalen King. And I don't know if it's going to impact Kalen King's draft stock, seeing something like that, but he was cooked. When I say cooked, I mean like Marvin Harrison Jr. fried him. And it was almost like every single route that he ran against him, he had him shook and was getting separation. And honestly, he went for 11 with 162, and the quarterback play in this game was not great. So I'll get into that here in a minute. But the other two things I wanted to talk about in terms of wide receivers was Carnell Tate, young buck. Marv, obviously Marv has the infamous quote saying that Carnell Tate's ahead of where he was last year. I don't think that, but in terms of maybe a development, maybe he is. But you can tell when you watch Carnell Tate out there on the field that he's going to be a superstar. 3 catches for 21 yards. One of those catches was a diving catch. He had 2 other plays in this game where he should have had huge gains, and there was just a bad throw. I mean, we'll get into that when we talk about the quarterbacks, but I think, and also one more thing about Carnell Tate too before I move on to Emeka. Carnell Tate had the block that ultimately led to the game-winning touchdown. So when you look at that play where Marvin Harrison Jr. scored, he came across the middle, caught the ball. He obviously had separation. Carnell Tate blocked 2 players on that one play. He blocked one guy until just enough time where he knew that Marv was going to outrun him, and then he snapped off to the next guy and went to him. Now, I don't think the next guy was going to be able to make that play because Marv was already coming around the corner at like the 6 or 7 yard line, whatever, and was going to make it into the end zone regardless. But when you talk about blocking from a wide receiver, that was textbook, and I feel like he did a great job on that play. He did miss a block earlier in the game that caused a tackle for loss, so there is work to put in, and I'm sure that he will. But you don't talk about blocking too much when you talk about Ohio State's wide receivers. And then I wanted to talk about Emeka Egbuka. So obviously Emeka missed this game. I do think that it was shown on the field that Ohio State was missing the presence of Emeka. They had Xavier Johnson out there in his spot. He had one drop. That was probably the only bad play Xavier Johnson's ever had since he's been a Buckeye. He's one of them super reliable guys. But I don't think that he's as dynamic in terms of catching the ball, Kyle McCord's confidence in him, and route running as Emeka Egbuka is, because Emeka is a first-round pick at wide receiver. So, I mean, I can't wait to see him back out there. I hope that Ohio State continues to kind of dial it up once Emeka does come back. Because I personally think that this game, the biggest difference in this game was Ryan Day is him. He is one of the best play callers in the game. And a lot of people like to blame him for some of the like red zone issues and all that good stuff. I think a lot of that comes down to execution. I mean, that screenplay to Carnell Tate was not a great call. But at the same time, it was also really good by Penn State's defense, because the way they were lined up pre-snap, Carnell Tate would have been able to score. They had blockers over there. They blocked the 2 guys. It would have been him and one guy, and I think that he would have been able to score. But at the last second, right before Kyle snapped the ball, Penn State shifted 2 defenders over there, and those 2 defenders made the tackle. I mean, again, whatever. I don't think that Ryan Day is an issue as a play caller. I think that he is an asset as a play caller. And I think that he's realizing that he has to be an asset as a play caller on this team with this offense. And I hope they continue doing that with Emeka Egbuka back, because if he's dialing up shit for Emeka and for Marv, I mean, this offense is going to continue getting better. So I don't know if I even gave the grade. I'm going to give the wide receivers an A grade just because, I mean, Marv went crazy. Carnell Tate did what he was supposed to do. Obviously, I think Julian Fleming didn't have his best game. I feel like there was a couple balls where he could have been a little more physical at the catch point and caught them, but whatever. I mean, that's not really what I expect from Julian Fleming. I don't think that anyone does. So, whatever. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so the last position I want to talk about is the quarterback position. So first, I'm going to start with Kyle McCord. No, you know what? Actually, let's start with Devin Brown because it'll be shorter, and then we'll get into Kyle McCord. So Devin Brown comes out, and that Devin Brown package, it looks really good. I love it, man. I hope that they continue doing that. I hope the kid is healthy. I say a prayer for him because obviously having an injury like that could be a problem, especially for a young guy. I don't know. And he's really a kind of a selfless dude that people don't give him enough credit, in my opinion. When you have someone who came here to be a starting quarterback, someone who came here as a highly rated passer, not as a dual threat or a running quarterback, and he lost the quarterback battle, obviously, and then he's willing to still go out there and be that kind of ramming type player where he's going to take the ball with a lead blocker and try to get into the end zone. I mean, again, all credit to that kid, and I think that he's going to be a superstar here at Ohio State whenever his time comes. But when he did run the ball, it was really successful. There was the one play kind of got stuffed at the line, and then I think the next play, or the next time that he was out there at least, it was like a 5-yard run Um, Actually, I forgot. So on the one play that he got stuffed at the line, there was a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. So he didn't have any negative plays. The one play where he almost got the touchdown, I think if he just had the ball in his other hand, it would have been a touchdown. But whatever. It was a hard run, and he ended up getting hurt on that play. So hopefully we see him back soon. Ryan Day actually seems like super excited about that package with Devin Brown, and he always talks about it as in like we can expand off of it. He's like, we can add things, and he always says Devin Brown can throw the ball too, which we've all seen that. We've seen him throw the ball. We've seen him throw two of the best throws that we've seen this season were from Devin Brown. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna move on to Kyle McCord. So I wanted to talk about the improvements that I've seen from Kyle, and then the concerns that I have because I think that we've seen some kind of new issues pop up. So we've seen Kyle McCord have timing issues this year, and I think that a lot of that has to do with seeing the field. The last few games we were seeing a lot of footwork issues too. However, I think that in this Penn State game, Kyle McCord's footwork was phenomenal. I don't think it was just good. I think it was great. I think it was like elite almost. Like his footwork was really good. Every throw, he was on balance. He was on time. He was taking his steps back, stepping up into the pocket. So I think that Ryan Day, as I predicted on my show last week, Ryan Day did work with Kyle a lot on that. The problem is that I feel like he was more inaccurate and the timing was off even more now that he does have that better footwork. So I don't know what the next step is for his development. This could just be who he is, but I definitely like seeing his footwork be better because what he was doing before was really impacting the offensive tackle's ability to block. He was just kind of drifting 10, 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And the tackles, there's nothing they can do in that situation. You can't block somebody with that much open field. So, I don't know. I think that Kyle McCord does have the ability to continue getting better. And I think that he showed the ability to be coached and continue to learn going from the last few weeks to this week with his footwork. But I felt like this week was probably his worst game in terms of ball placement. I think that he had tons of opportunities, and even Ryan Day even noticed that. If you watch the actual game on TV, Jenny Taft or whatever her name is, the reporter, the All-American girl, whatever, she said that Ryan Day pulled Kyle McCord to the side after a failed drive, and he said, "Calm down. They can't guard us. They can't cover us. Our wide receivers are open." And honestly, that was the case. The wide receivers were open. They were dominating this game, and Kyle McCord was way off on his timing and way off on his ball placement. And I think that it potentially cost Marvin Harrison Jr. like a career day. I mean, he probably goes for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns or something if Kyle McCord was on point with his throws to Marv. And Ohio State obviously would score more points if Kyle McCord was not so off. Even like one drive got killed because of a screenplay that was actually blocked perfectly, and it would have been Marv with like 10 yards of separation between him and a defender and a one-on-one for him to try to break a tackle. But it was just a screen, and Kyle McCord just threw it over Marv's head. And I mean, again, I don't know if those accuracy issues are fixed, because I think that some are fixable. Excuse me, because I think some of that is just kind of natural ability. But I do think that if he changed his footwork so drastically from last week to this week, that's going to make things a little wonky for you. And I think that if he continues to have that better footwork, ultimately that's how he's going to end up becoming a better passer of the ball. And the team is going to sync with that better footwork, and the timing is going to continue getting better. So I'm going to continue being optimistic about it. In this game, I'm going to grade Kyle out as like a C. He still had a decent statistical game. Excuse me. 22 of 35, 286 yards, 1 touchdown. So, I mean, whatever. That's not a bad game. But at the same time, that could have been a lot better, and the game was closer than it needed to be because of his mistakes that he was making. So, I don't know. I'm not giving up on Kyle McCord yet. He's 7-0 as the Ohio State's quarterback. So, I talk about like a lot of the negative sides, a lot of the criticism. Ultimately, this team's 7-0. they played two of the best three teams that they're going to play this year already, and they won those games. And I mean, at this point, just finish the season strong, and Kyle just continue developing. I trust Ryan Day and Corey Dennis in terms of developing quarterbacks. So, all right, so I'm going to move on from that. Like I said, it's C grade for Kyle McCord. The last thing I wanted to talk about before I get out of here was Ohio State's 2021 recruiting class. So I don't really talk about recruiting too much ever, but I think just kind of watching this game this weekend and what has transpired throughout the season, it's got me excited for this class kind of going down as one of the better classes ever in college football. So you're looking at guys who are juniors right now. This 2021 recruiting class that was number 2 in the nation, and it consisted of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 5-star players. I think that this recruiting class could end up generating 4 to 5 first-round picks in this upcoming draft. So when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at guys, just reading off some of the names in this class. Quinn Ewers was in this class, but he reclassified. I'm not even considering him because obviously he was at Ohio State for just a small amount of time and then transferred out. All right, sorry about that. So anyway, looking at this class, we have JT Tuimoloau. I think he's going to be a first-round pick, so that's one. You have Jack Sawyer. I don't think he'll be a first-round pick this year, but solid player. Probably a future NFL player. Donovan Jackson, potentially a first-round pick. I think that he started off this year not great. However, in the last few games, he's been really good. So if he continues to play the level he's playing right now, he could end up being a first-round pick. I'm not going to count that one, though. I'm going to leave that one off of my... So at the end, we'll say whatever number I get to plus potentially Donovan Jackson. The next one, you have Emeka Egbuka, probably a first-round pick. Really good wide receiver. I'm going to move on from that. I mean, there's not much else to say about that. Travion Henderson. Talent potential to be a first-round pick, but I don't know what's going on with him. The age-old thing that people say is the best ability is availability. Trey just seems like he's never available to play. And then Michael Hall Jr., potentially a first-round pick. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to leave that one at a potential also. So we're at 2 right now. Jordan Hancock, another one, potentially a first-round pick. I mean, he's been really good so far this year. So I expect big things from him. And, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to leave this year, but I think that if he continues to have the year that he's having, he could end up being thrust into that like late first or second round pick status, and he could end up leaving. And then you have Kyle McCord. Obviously, we already talked about how I feel about how he's playing. And then as you go on down through here, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. Marv is going to be like top 3 pick probably. So that puts us at 3 locks as first rounders right now. And then the last guy I want to talk about from this recruiting class is Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke is going to be a lock first round pick in my opinion too. So the way I'm looking at it, this team or this one recruiting class, Ryan Day's 2021 class, which came after their national championship appearance versus Alabama, is going to generate at least 4 first round picks with the potential of having 5 if Donovan Jackson, Jordan Hancock, guys like that. I forgot Tyleik Williams. Okay, so I forgot probably one of my favorite players on the team. Tyleik Williams is probably going to be a first-round pick. So I'm going to say this class generates 5, potentially 6, all guys that are going the first round after their junior year, which is crazy. I don't know if there's ever been a recruiting class to do that. I'm sure there probably has with some of the ones that Alabama, Georgia, teams like that have had. But that was just an interesting thought that I had because if you look at this player or this team right now, this team is led by juniors. The junior class on this team is the leaders. It is the guys who are the best players for the most part. So, all right, that was it for me. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Obviously, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Come back for content daily, 10 a.m. We're going to continue talking about this Buckeye team and get into this Wisconsin game because I do think it could be a good one. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's CFB_stop. Hit me up there. I constantly putting stuff on Twitter and stats and all that good stuff. So peace out, guys. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.